All right. Hey, Kirby, I was afraid I was going to have to start without you, but you made it.
Oh no, yeah, I was running like 2 minutes behind. So
No worries. No worries at all. Thanks so much for deciding to hang out. Sorry I couldn't get this scheduled before the Kickstarter ended, but you said that the guild, I guess, backer kit page, or the, what are they calling it? The
pledge manager, late pledges.
late pledges is opening up next week.
Yeah,
Uh,
it should be up next week. Yep.
cool. So first, why don't you give me your gamer story? How did you get involved in the hobby? How'd you start? How'd you end up
Um,
where you are today?
yeah, I started playing with fifth edition. I don't know, probably 8 or 9 years ago at this point. Um, with some old dudes that had been playing since the Brown books. They just invited me to join their table, and I was like, "Yeah, I'll try this out." I've always wanted to play D&D. Several years before that, I had actually picked up the fourth edition box set from a thrift store, but I had never had any experience with RPGs or anything, so I didn't really understand what exactly it was. But it was like this was like something that I was like, I don't want to get rid of this. I want to figure out how this works, kind of thing. But I didn't have any concept of what it really was for. So, but that was probably 8 years ago. We played in a campaign, fifth edition campaign for a little while, and then we started a campaign in FFG Star Wars: Edge of the Empire,
Oh,
and I
nice. I,
played that.
I haven't played those.
It's a fun one. I like that one actually. But yeah, we played that for a minute, and then our campaign just kind of fell apart, and I started hosting my own games. And only about probably 2 years ago, maybe I started actually like picking up other things. Though I had played fifth edition for a long time.
How
Um,
did you find the migration? Because you said that you guys started, or you went with fifth edition, then you got a little bit of Star Wars in there. I know a lot of people. One of the big, I suppose, complaints about the fifth edition community is they don't feel like a lot of folks in fifth edition tend to look at other games. They tend to just stick with fifth
mhm.
edition. Was there something that prompted? Was your group just kind of a multi-game group, or how did that? I'm curious how
um,
your journey went from like that fifth edition kind of sandbox into parts unknown.
yeah, I don't know that they're necessarily a multi-game type group. They're all old head old head RPG guys, so they're aware of a lot of things. The one Most of the guys in that group actually play tested fourth edition, because one of the guys in that group actually was on the design team for fourth
Mm.
edition. So they were very D&D centric, but uh, I think it just kind of happened. One of the guys had picked up one of the books from our LGS, and he was like, I really want to try this out. I played a game at the store, and it was pretty cool, and so we just kind of did it. It was definitely a different. I mean, the with the narrative dice, the proprietary dice that FFG uses for that system, it was wildly different for someone who's still kind of new into the world of gaming. But it wasn't super
Oh yeah,
difficult, to
because
be
right, because their
honest.
game has all kinds of, yeah, all kinds of different dice.
Yeah,
I'm always of a mixed mind. I love all the different dice, but then it also makes it awkward to use if you don't happen to
hmm
have those dice around.
yeah. It
You know,
is for Fantasy Flight's Star Wars and Genesis system. I like the idea of it, but the proprietary dice creates kind of a barrier to entry.
yeah, and I
I
get
mean,
it.
you can
They have explanations in there for how to like
how
take
to
it,
use regular
whatever,
dice.
but it
You
just
can
adds
do
a
it.
layer.
Yeah, but it's whatever. But
Yeah.
since then, I ran fifth edition for a while, and then maybe 2 years ago I picked up. I think I got Mothership and Morkborg around the same time, at the suggestion of a friend of mine, and that was just like a slippery slope for me. I just tumbled down a rabbit hole, spent thousands of dollars on all the games I
As
could
have
fucking
we all.
find. Yeah, and then pretty soon after that, I started writing.
Yeah, I was going to
Um,
ask that. So what flipped that switch for you from just kind of consumer of content to, hey, I not only I want to, but I am going to make this stuff myself.
it was actually when I got Morkborg, I was flipping through it, and I liked the description of it being like the black metal or doom metal flail to the face thing. But I was like, this isn't actually like related to doom metal, and I'm a big metalhead. It's just like that. It's just like the aesthetic, which is cool. I like that. But then I was like, what if I wrote a crust punk RPG that was actually about crust punks fighting against like a capitalist oppressive society. And so I started writing that, and that was something that I had worked on for over a year. And it went through many iterations, and eventually, maybe 3 or 4 months ago, I just scrapped it completely.
Really?
Yeah.
Why? What did you see was the big obstacle? So this is pre-guild, or were you working on guild at the same
No,
time?
I had put out Weird just before I scrapped Crust was what it was called. And Weird is kind of the prequel to Guild. It's kind of like the base foundation for it. But I had been working on it for so long. I ran a ton of play tests. I ran like a mini campaign, all kinds of stuff, and I just kept adding and adding and adding things. And then that was kind of when I realized that I had added so much to it that it was not really usable for me anymore.
Oh,
Like
interesting.
it was essentially me just answering these questions. And it's funny, I was actually just talking about this in a Discord chat not 20 minutes ago, um, about how writing for the OSR and OSR adjacent uh, groups and styles has helped me really like hone in what is important when writing. And I think when I was writing this game, there was so much that I was answering that wasn't necessary to answer. So many questions that I didn't need to answer that I had crafted complex systems around, and unnecessary narrative structure for all kinds of things that just weren't needed.
Right.
And after spending a year and a half doing that several times over, I realized I didn't need almost all of it. I could pretty much strip the entire game down to 2 pages instead of the 75 that it was. Um, and then I was like, I'm just going to scrap this. If I want to come back to it, I'll come back to it at some point. And I actually reused some of the stuff in my haunted house book. There's a whole section in there for haunted plants or monster plants that I actually stripped out of the book that I was writing before. So, it's kind of still around. I might reuse things here and there, but yeah.
The echoes will resound and
The
other
echo,
stuff.
yeah, exactly.
So what got you onto guild? What was the impetus?
So, okay, yeah, the impetus for Guild was actually, like I said before, the foundation was Weird, which is the like ultralight 3-page booklet I released with Exalted Funeral this past summer. Um, and that was basically coming out of a RuneQuest campaign that I had played for maybe 6 months or so. I really like trad games. Um, I like I like the way that they try to, like I said, answer every single possible question. I think that's actually a skill, not one that I'm interested in honing or, really doing ever again. But I think that is an interesting skill for a writer to have or a designer to have. But after coming out of this RuneQuest campaign, I then read Pax and Blades by Luca Rick, or is it Lucas Rollum? I can't remember which one wrote Pax and Blades. I should answer that real
Their
quick
initials
so
are
I don't.
LR.
Yes,
You could fill it.
Pax and Blades. It's Lucas Rollum. Okay, I should have known that before. But anyway, yeah, I had read that and I was like, this is a great little like 12, 16 page sword and sorcery game. This is great. I should do something like this, but I'm going to do something even shorter and even smaller and even lighter. And then I was like, okay, I really like the way RuneQuest handles combat, where the gear that you're carrying affects the weight and speed of your character, and all these variables that are affected by what you have on you. And I was like, how can I really make that something that is uh, part of this, but with like the least amount of rules possible, like just the minimal bare bones possible rules for something that would kind of equate to that. So with Weird, it was basically just your armor has a weight modifier, and when you roll, you add the weight modifier to your roll, and it basically modifies your skill. So with Guild, I expanded on that a bit, and I created this gear weight section, which is basically whatever you have equipped um, is added to your roll, and as its own kind of thing, and it modifies your skills ability to create this aptitude, which is what you actually would be rolling when you're trying to accomplish things. So it's not much different than that, but it's expanded quite a bit on what the original Weird booklet was.
I saw there seemed to be a large emphasis in guild, maybe not a large one, but obviously the weight. I really like the idea of these really heavy coins that are these. They're not coins like you would think in your pocket. They feel like they're more.
They're like little
They're like
placards
little
almost.
placards. Yeah. So
Yeah.
it puts a real, and you have a real emphasis on getting those in and out.
Uh-huh.
And your abstraction of hirelings in the book to just like multiples. Multiples. You can have like one, you can have a few, or you can have like a small army there
a pack
to haul all this stuff out. Is fascinating. I mean, did you just like what made you hone in, I guess, on this concept of sort of weight as this driving mechanic? Because it is interesting how you can leverage it in many different ways, how it can come into play.
Yeah, so that was a little bit kind of that kind of grew out of that same thing. I was like, how does weight affect blah blah blah? But then I was like, you know what if like gold used to be in like the old game used to have weight, and I guess it technically still does in the newer systems, but nobody pays attention to that shit. And I was like, what if there was like this, you already have this real serious focus on, am I able to effectively wear this armor and wield this weapon, and like and still and be like, am I able to effectively do this, right? Because my skill might be pretty low, and if I'm wearing heavy armor, I'm fucked if I try to do anything. I'm just going to take a beating, right? So then I was like, well, what if I also kind of put that impetus on like, what can I actually carry out of this dungeon? If I come across like a little pile of gold placards in like a goblin's treasure hoard, I might really want to carry all those out, but I might have to abandon some of my like gear to do so, right? I might have to drop my half damaged armor, which will leave me completely unprotected as I try and escape with this. So it was kind of like I was trying to create this like risk reward system, like really risky reward system for like, do I bank on paying hirelings to come out with me and pay up front for that, or the pack animals, do I pay up front for that, which they have a risk of dying? So if they do end up taking damage and being killed, then I'm losing stuff on that end. Or do I just go in and grab everything I can, drop what I don't need, and run, basically, kind of thing?
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, it really is interesting because so much of you can really dial in a lot of the sort of dungeon delving emphasis in OSR to that kind of weight. Like how much can you carry out? Because that really does it sets how long you can stay in the dungeon. All these things really come down to, well, how much loot have you got and how are you going to get it? How are you going to get it out again? And I really like the reframing of the kind of currency into something sort of large and bulky, because I think it kind of gets around the, well, how many coins, I've hold a coin in my hand and it's, I can carry 1,000 nickels in my pocket with no problem, by giving it a specific size and dimension that is outside of our ideal, our idea of coins are in the world. I feel like it really kind of frames it's like, no, these things they're big and they're bulky, so just consider them like that and don't worry about like how many coins fit in a pouch, how many pouches fit on my belt, how many belts fit on my,
it's like how many of 9 can I carry? Like, yeah. And I had to create a little bit of a narrative thing to fit that, because like, there's always going to be the people who are, oh yeah, you find a pile of gems or whatever, and whatever, that works. But like, so I kind of created this narrative that these are like ancient gold coins that have been discovered, and they are the official currency of the guild itself and not necessarily of the world. So the guild uses these gold coins as their currency, and you can transfer 50 rubies for 3 gold placards or something. So, there's a way for you to kind of fill in the blanks with different things you might find.
Totally. But I like how it emphasizes that same kind of similar thing of these things you have to find underground, out in dangerous places. It's not like, oh, what has the farmer got in his pockets?
Exactly.
You're not going to find it there. Like these are not the stuff that everyone's carrying around day to day to go shopping with. These are specifically these things. And I like the idea that these guilds, either because, I mean, when I read it in my mind, I was imagining, well, did these guilds have their foundation in this ancient spot that's why they still honor, like in some case, if there was like the church that grew out of ancient Rome, still themselves only use the currency of like these ancient Roman coins, and that they're kind of carrying that forward. So to interact with them, you need to have this thing, right? Which puts a real it's almost like it's that first doorway to getting in there. It's like you
Yeah.
have to have gone and found these specific things. Like you can't just come pay us with any little change you found between your couch cushions. No, you have to go and find these kind of ancient coins,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, to come in. So the idea of guilds, was that something that you did that grow out of anything? Did you just want to
Yeah.
explore that kind of
I've always
trope,
liked
I
that
guess?
concept of like, and I use this as the main example is there's an anime called Goblin Slayer that I watched that had this basically as like the core concept was these like adventurers that are super weak, like basically level 1 adventurers go and join this actual adventuring guild, and they get this little board with job notices on it to go do whatever the job is, clear out a cave full of goblins or something, you know, and they find people that'll do it with them to get a couple gold coins at the end, and they go do it. And I was like, there, you know, that is like the core concept of classic RPGs and like the old school stuff, but like it's not so diegetic, I guess. Like the characters are not literally working for this specific thing that is the entire goal. It's like that, but you know, like vaguely speaking, it's what they do. So I wanted to take it and be like, no, literally, this is what you do. You work for an adventuring guild that takes jobs for exploring ancient places in the world, but also like stupid jobs, like my son was kidnapped, here I'll pay you 1 gold coin from the guild's coffers to go do whatever, or the guild will transfer that gold into gold placards to pay the adventurers. But you know, there's stupid little things like that that you can also do if you're like a lower level or you're just desperate for work or something like that. But yeah, that was kind of like the beginning of it was trying to be much more literal with, I'm an adventurer and this is my job, like this is what I do for work.
Yeah, totally. And you know, I think that I mean, at least the way I look at it is that by using, because in the book you use very generic terms. It's just the guild
Mm-hmm.
and the kingdom, which is nice because then you can just fill those in
That
with
was
whatever
the
name.
goal for sure.
You know,
Yeah.
every time you see kingdom in caps, you can replace that with whatever your nation state or whatever thing you're working for. Anytime you see guild, you can make all your different guilds you want, and each one of them can function similarly.
Yeah.
Ewan asks, has the Kickstarter campaign ended? It has ended, Ewan. And my apologies for not putting this in a time frame where you could watch this interview, be sufficiently interested, and then get in on the Kickstarter. However, I believe, and you can fill in, Kirby, when is there is a backer kit link in the show description, but if you go there, it's just basically going to say, come back later, go check out the Kickstarter.
It
But
should be live next week. I haven't nailed the day down, but I'm thinking probably Monday morning. I just need to confirm with my project manager, the person who was helping me with marketing. I just want to make sure we get everything set up before I actually launch it. But yeah, it did just end, unfortunately. So, but no biggie. Yeah.
And is this, you get it in print and digital? What's the
Yeah, so we'll have digital versions. I just actually sent like my first final draft to my editor last night. So hopefully we'll be getting the final layout of the thing set up this week, next week. So as soon as, basically my goal is as soon as the late pledges and the backer kit closes, the digital edition will be ready to ship. The print version of the book will be obviously take a little longer. We did hit our stretch goal, which includes 6 adventures in a separate booklet for free for any physical backers in the Kickstarter. It will be actually available for purchase on the backer kit as a late pledge if you want to do like an add-on for it. But yes, that stuff will be, everything from the Kickstarter will be available on late pledge basically.
Yeah, awesome. So just for those who are watching, Kirby did send me this morning just a version. I'm not going to show it or anything because it's not final, but that allowed me to kind of take a look and see what's what. I really like the creative venture section really fast. It's actually you're doing something that I've been working on myself, which is trying to sort of build up a little bit of that backstory just kind of during their character creation. So you can get kind of a background where it's like you're a farmer, which gives you a little perk, gives you a little something, and kind of sets you, and then different elements. And I also like the kind of why you join the guild segment. So by the time you finish the character correction, you have this sort of skeleton of a person, kind of where they're from and sort of what their purpose is. Of course, you can make those yourself, but I always like the dice because then I'm surprised by
dice rolls every time
what I get. But it's a really nice kind of flavorful flavorful start. Did you now? Let me just not to switch gears, but just kind of go.
No.
We connected on TikTok, so I
Yeah.
joined TikTok recently, and I was surprised by all the folks I was running into. Just that I didn't see in other platforms. Were suddenly like, oh, these people are on TikTok. Kirby was one of them, and then I think we talked, and you had said, hey, I think you said, hey, you wanted to, so could I send you a copy of this when it's finished? I said, great. And then I said something like, well, are you going to be at PAX? And you said, oh yeah, I'm going to be at PAX. And so we then connected at PAX for a few minutes over at Tony's Plus One XP booth. Did you have a chance? Did you run any of Guild at
Yeah.
PAX? I didn't even have a chance to. I find the PAX method of organizing games is so kind of haphazard and scattered that it's like you just see this. If you're not, the Ventures League, you have to get up at the crack of dawn and do that. Like I wanted to get into Free League, and if you're not ready to log into Free League and hit refresh at or at their sign up at like 8:59 a.m., you're not going to get into those games. And then when you go down and kind of the open games, they're just these pieces of paper kind of laying around. Very easy to kind of not see everything and depending. So I really wish they would digitize it or do some way to do it digitally, or I don't know, some way to make it neater. So I totally missed if you had it, but what were your experiences?
I basically just did a pickup game with people that I knew or people that were friends of people I knew. But it was one. I ran one game and it was about 3 hours long, and it was wildly fun. I ran the introductory adventure that comes in the actual guild book. So that just to say, if you back the Kickstarter, you're getting 7 adventures for free with the game book itself. But anyway, I ran the introductory adventure that comes with it, and we had 8. I think it was 8 people playing at the table, which is the most I personally have ever run in a game in my life. And it was basically turned into a stress test for the game to see how does this actually work with this many people, and it was really good. It was really fun.
Now, how did you handle hirelings with that many people? Because I imagine
we didn't
seems like with the weight thing, or did nobody do hirelings?
No, we did it as the underling, the starter, basically level 0, almost funnel style. And that was when I realized, okay, maybe because originally I think I had written this game was for 3 to 8 people, and after playing with 8 people, I was like, yeah, let's say 3 to 6, because 8 people's a little.
I mean, 8 people's a lot for any kind of game.
Even if everybody's doing 1 damage, one monster with 2 HD is still going to be torn apart in a matter of turns.
Totally,
so,
and you still have to wait for 8 people to, there's just no way in a game where people have to speak that you can only do so much at the same time. At some point you got to sit down and hear from every person. And 8.
Yeah, luckily I did kind of try and write the combat to be extremely fast. So that is one thing that I did notice worked really well when I did this 8-person stress test.
So now I didn't get to the combat section, or actually I had to stop. I think I was right at combat when I was like, whoops.
Yeah, it's I wrote it to be extremely fast. It's basically side-based, no real initiative, and it's opposed rolls. So it's
is it set damage, or do you roll dice for damage, or
it's dice damage, but the level 1 underling basic weapon that you start with is either 1d2 or 2 damage.
I did like those tags, because I did see those tags kind of on the weapons and weapons and armor and stuff. One was it was what was it, you're feeble, or it was feeble, your pathetic armor or something like that, your pathetic armor. I was like, that's a good way to put it. You got
that's
something.
How all the items, magic, everything in the game is, and monsters as well, are categorized by types basically. And each of them has their own little statistic section. So a bladed weapon will have a D4 table for how the 4 different types of damage a bladed weapon might have. And if a player loots a bladed weapon, the referee can say, oh, this is a scimitar, or the player can say, oh, this is a longsword, whatever they want to do. And they'll roll a D4 and it'll tell them, oh, this is how much damage this weapon will do. Right. So it kind of creates a randomized. My goal with that whole thing was to create a vast feeling world of weapons, armor, magic, trinkets, and monsters and all this stuff without hundreds and hundreds of pages of that exact thing. So each weapon will have its a variation of different damage is, and then if you roll the max damage on weapon or armor, you get a percentile chance at getting a magic effect attached to it.
Ooh, nice.
Which is just like a little bonus that you might end up with. But yeah, they were all categorized. Everything is categorized like that. Even the magics is like, small damage magic, and you use your trinket to cast magic, and your trinket tells you how much damage or whatever. I'm not great at explaining things without writing them out, but yeah, that's something that I really am happy with, because I think it works really well and what I've seen from all the adventures that I've had written is people really like taking that specific concept and creating their own stuff with it. So I've had several adventures. One of Amanda P, who wrote Tanic, she gave me a Tanic for OSE, I think. She gave me her adventure that she wrote for the Adventurer's Diary, and it was like there were several monsters in there that I was like, these are so cool, and they just used whatever the basic little stat line was for it, and they created their own thing, and it's already got its own stats lined up. It also creates for really easy like inline stat blocking, because you can just say, if you're writing an adventure that's like a 2-page adventure, you don't have to worry about like creating a whole bestiary at the end of it. You just write small or medium or dangerous or whatever, and then you just reference that in the back of the book real quick.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, especially in kind of the OSR where so many people are homebrewing and making their own stuff.
Exactly.
Having rules that are quick and easy to understand to be able to do stuff like that.
Yeah.
Really helps.
But right, so combat, that's where we started with. So combat's just opposed rolls. So basically the monsters every monster or enemy class or category has an attack die. And that is basically its modifier that you add to a d20 roll. The most dangerous one is a -10, which is like a dragon or a giant or something like that. And you basically roll a d20, or the referee will roll a d20 and add that to the roll, and then the player will roll their d20 and add their aptitude, which whether it be might, agility, or mind, depending on what they're using, weapon or magic or whatever. And you want to beat it. You want to be the lowest roll. And that's it. It's super quick. When I ran it at PAX, we got through 8 rounds of combat, or 8 turns in combat in like a minute and a half, 2 minutes. Like, people were asking questions and stuff because it was a new game to everybody. Sure. But, it was like, I was actually pleasantly surprised to see how fast it was. So that was something that I was really happy with once I realized that.
Were there any favorite moments from that, from your PAX adventure?
Yes, actually, I talked about this a little bit, I think, on Weekly Scroll last week. But one of the characters, so the main focus of, or there's not a main focus, but like there's no HP in this game. It is just armor. Your armor rating is basically your HP, and then if your armor breaks or is removed, or you're hit without it or something like that, you have a 1 in 20 chance of dying immediate, or 1 in 12 chance of dying immediately. I think there's like an armor critical effects table that I wrote last night. So there's all these brutal things that can happen to you. But one of the players took the utility magic category and created a mend armor spell out of it. And I was like, that's genius. That's exactly what I want people to do at the table, is come up with some way to break the game with the tools that I've provided you to break it with, right? So like, the power of the spell was only 1 because they were a crappy little farmer or something, right? But somebody had 0 armor and they healed the armor for 1 rating, and they were able to take another hit before their armor broke again. And I was like, that's perfect. That's exactly what I love. I love that kind of creative thinking when it comes to RPGs. And I'm glad that somebody took what I wrote and was like, how can I do that? That's so cool.
You mean you don't want to write it up like Wizards with 5th edition to try to close every single loophole that people might use?
No, thank you.
So did they end up finishing, or did they make it through? Were there
glorious death? They did. What's hilarious is my friend wrote this adventure for me as the starter adventure for the game, and because there was 8 people, 2 of the players criticaled their attacks on the boss and killed it in the first round of combat before it even attacked anyone.
They'd even get to give a little monologue, and it was dead.
Yeah, I was just like laughing so hard because I was like, I can't even believe this is like, it was so quick. It was, but yeah, that was when I was like, all right, maybe 6 is like a max. Like, you know, if you want to do 8, you can do 8, but let's add like 15 more enemies
Well,
to
that's
this room.
you have to have the big bad has to send out some lieutenant or like their brother
Yeah,
or
yeah,
something or a twin, get
yeah.
that first round, and then he steps out of the
But at
shadows.
that point, it was, you know, it was 11:30 at night, and we've been playing for 3 hours, and I was like, oh fuck yeah, everybody, you destroy this thing, like okay.
Well, I mean, that's awesome. 8, yeah, I can't imagine running games with 8. I don't even know. I don't even think I really want. I don't as a player. I don't think I want to run a game. I want to be in a game with 8 because it
No,
just
I
feels
don't.
like I'm waiting too
My
long.
max
No.
is like 4.
Yeah.
I can't like I can't. I mean, I have really bad ADHD, so even with 4 people, I forget that people are playing games with me after they're, you know.
It's funny, and as the players, you want that stuff, and you want the game master or whoever's running the game to be like, yeah, you really did do it, and not like he
Yes.
shrugs it off and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
assumes his final form.
Yeah,
That wasn't fun.
create some enraged thing on the last minute just to like fuck with. No, like sometimes I'm just like, you know what, these you guys just steamrolled an entire dungeon for no reason. It doesn't make any sense why you were able to, but you did. So, you know, fuck it, you found some really cool magic sword at the bottom of it, you know,
Yeah,
cool.
but what you can do, which is fun, is have a little trap after the fact, so they feel an
I
all
could have
cool, and
done
they
that
let down
actually.
their guard, and suddenly like the pit trap opens up.
With this specific ending to this adventure, I actually probably could have, and I just didn't think of it at the time, but I should have. It would have been excellent.
I always love those, like, you got to still be on your toes. Like, yeah, you did just take down the big bad, but doesn't mean you can relax.
Yeah.
Still a dangerous spot. So what was the choice? So one of the things I noticed was an interesting choice was and I don't know how it plays, how you intend to be played, but I feel like the hirelings as kind of an abstracted resource, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I think there are a couple of different schools of thought. And I've seen some other people kind of mess around with this. I'm someone I've always enjoyed the individual hireling because I get to have fun playing them, and those concepts of, are they going to turn on you or run away at the least opportune moment? And
Yeah.
you get to kind of have those little role playing moments where people kind of interact with the hirelings. But it seems like with Guild, with the emphasis on the weight and everything, and I did really enjoy the fact that you could have, like, here you've got like 48 hirelings with as a train to just carry out,
Yeah.
all the loot.
Yep.
But then, but the I guess the cost of that is I'm not, if someone said I'm hiring 48 hirelings, I'm not going to give them all names and individualize
Yeah. I
whatever.
mean,
It's
you
just like
totally could if you wanted
the
to.
gang of, I don't know, 16, or they're, maybe I might give like a foreman a name or something like that, but they're going to be kind of nameless
Yeah.
um hirelings. Was there any did you weigh out the choices of how to deal with them, or is it just like, hey, because it totally makes sense in terms of your emphasis on weight, that you have this kind of resource that helps, that has kind of like risk reward, adding to the weight, but it does have that cost of a little bit less, personalized
Yeah. I mean, like
hireling
that
experience.
was kind of one of the things where I was like, you know, if people want to take this further, take it further, but like, there's no reason for me to spend time writing something out for someone to maybe ignore, right? Like, you know, if somebody wants to come up with their little hireling sheet and say and use the same, and like, you know, hire the hirelings the same ones repeatedly, and you know, whatever, that's, you know, awesome. I love that. But I, you know, it's not really something I really cared too much about. I thought of them more of like a meta currency almost, where you
Yeah,
just
that seems to be how they're laid out in the book, which, but
yeah.
again, which, like, it makes a lot of sense though. I've had some fun times with my individual hirelings, though I think it's they have there's different, yeah, I guess, uh pluses and minuses, right? Because it's
Yeah.
easy to also forget, and I've gone through sessions where I've had the hirelings that basically would essentially act like that kind of resource, because I just don't, I don't give them anything interesting to say. They don't end up getting a moment, and it's kind of like you just forget about them. And someone's like, "Hey, wait a minute, isn't like so and so here?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, I guess you're right. I did
Yeah.
totally forget so and so is there, grumbling in the back or something like that." But
Yeah.
there, at the same time, there've been kind of some fun moments with them. But I think it's a good use, and it is simple to run, because I think
Yeah.
the other thing with hirelings, especially depending on which games you've played, is they can feel like a big drag on you as a GM
Yeah,
to
that's
have
the
to
other
deal
reason
with.
why I tagged them in, is like they will only attack if, you know, they feel like there's a absolute success in combat going to have. Otherwise, they're just going to hide, right? They're going to run away from combat and like stick to the back or hide behind the rocks or in the room that you just cleared and wait for combat to end. and they all just do 1 damage. Like I try to keep that aspect of it super easy. So if the referee or the players wanted to actually include them, it's not like a slog for you to like. All right, now it's the hireling's turn. Let's roll their like attack roll and say it's like the hireling hits for 1 damage, done. Like, but they're not going to join combat unless this thing is like almost dead and you all are like triumphantly beating the shit out of it, and you call them in at the last second to like jump on a pile, right? Like that's kind of how I felt. Like, you know, they're just gonna run away and hide because they're just little like weak dudes that are just you just paying to carry gold out, you know.
Oh, we got a question here from the chat. Perkins asks, "How have you handled spells and magic?" Now, you did touch on it briefly, but you want to go into a little bit on the system and
Yeah,
guild?
sure. So every trinket, so spells and magic are cast via trinkets, which are the name for any item that you want. Basically, that could be a staff, it could be a rock, it could be a necklace, a brooch, something, whatever. Anything that harbors arcane power. Each trinket has 2 stats attached to it. One is essence, which is basically its variable stat, so it would be a dice roll, and one is its potency, which is its static stat, which is like 3, 5, 6, 7, whatever. So there are 2 types of main magics. There's damage, and then there's protection magic or defensive magic, and then there's 2 smaller ones. There's utility and service magic, and those are basically whatever you want them to be. So there's small, medium, large, major damage. There's small, medium, large, major, defensive. And then there's just service and utility. And there's little examples in there for each one to kind of show a player when they're choosing their magic or spell or whatever, what this might look like. So a major damage spell might be a tectonic earthquake that you like, that, you know, can be whatever size you want and can do whatever you want. But if you were to cast that as an attack, you would roll your essence, your variable stat from your trinket to do so. If you were going to use something that was a defensive magic, you would come up with whatever that is. I'm casting mage armor on myself and I'm using medium defensive magic. You would use the potency, which is the static stat on your trinket. So that adds 9 armor rating to your armor, right? Because that's the potency is 9. You can also use the potency as a timer, as a distance for like one of the spells. I think one of the players did was like, I'm going to use telekinesis and my potency is 1. So I'm going to say I can hold things that are smaller than 1 foot in diameter or something like that, I think is what she said. And then I was like, okay, and you can also move it for 1 minute. You can telekinesis this thing for 1 minute, right? Before it like falls. So I tried to, because with the armor, there's rating, it's a static number. And with weapons, there's a variable, which is the dice roll. And since there was damage and defensive magics, I wanted to have like kind of both in the trinkets. So I had that essence and potency balance there. But yeah, I mean, it's basically whatever you want it to be. I tried to keep that as open as possible too, because I always like, and I talked about this a minute ago with Todd, that the player that came up with the repair armor spell, I was like, this is the perfect use of the thing that I didn't think of. So yeah.
Are there any limits to the effects they can do other than, you know, having to fit within that the potency and essence? So they can...
I don't think so. I think that's really just up to the referee, and you know, everybody's got their core game loop and their you know, the rules that they have in their head and how they might allow things to happen, which is another thing I rely on heavily with this game is, you know, you don't need that. You could definitely play this with 0 knowledge and figure out how to kind of run that. But, you know, a lot of people, I think most people that probably backed this on Kickstarter or will pick this up have at least some core game loop in their head and concept of how something might be affected.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I'm a big fan of ad hoc
Yeah.
spellcasting. I mean, the only chance I've had to play it was in Barbarians of Lemuria, but I loved the heck out of it. And then unfortunately, the game ended early, but I had like created, I don't know, probably 10 spells just in the few sessions we had because it was just so fun. And being able to really just take something and you just kind of get these parameters. And then it's like you said, saying within those parameters, like, hey, you go to town. Like, whatever you can make of it, make of it.
Like player agency is what Perkins just said there. And that was like a big thing for me was like, you know, that was one of the reasons, not just in creating categories for everything. So it you know, I don't have to write 50 pages of weapons and magic and spells to just fill out my world, right? But also that was the whole player agency was like a big part of this entire concept, even down to the generic name kingdom and guild. Like when I've run the game, before we start, I ask the players what they want to name the kingdom and what their guild is like. You know, if they want to name the guild, they don't have to name the guild; they can just call it the guild. But if you want to name the guild, you name the guild. You know, and it's the same with everything else. All the weapons, you know, like I said earlier, if a player loots something, the referee could decide that it's something, or the referee could just tell the player, you decide what kind of weapon. You know, you pick up a bladed weapon. What kind of bladed weapon is it? You know, is it a concealed bone dagger that has like, you know, some weird blood magic attached to it? Like, just
Ooh,
fucking
I'm down
yeah,
for
of
weird
course.
blood magic.
Yeah, we love blood. We love blood. Like I love giving players control over stuff like that because I think it's a way for not only is a way for the referee to have less work to do, really, but it makes them more attached to everything that's happening, I think.
Yeah, I think that's a big. I think that gets kind of lost along the way. Is that when you give the players some of this creative control in whatever way you want to do it, it is going to make them feel more invested in things. You know, it's funny. I since I've only seen you with the big beard. Was it a hockey beard? Is it like Christmas?
Yeah.
You shaved it off?
I don't know what
Was
I
it
was
a
doing.
PAX?
I'm not sure. I made a grave mistake.
You prefer clean or you prefer?
I mean, I've had a beard since I was like 18, so you know,
This isn't your first time you've gone without it, I would
every
assume.
now and then I'll shave and immediately go, "What the fuck was I doing when I did this?" But I just shave the sides of my head too, so
Oh, you
see what
got it
happens.
all. What else are you playing? Or are you
Right
playing
now,
anything else?
I'm not really doing anything actually. Unfortunately, I have a lot of writing I have to do. Um, I've got a I've got a couple. I've got a commission job that I just picked up. I've got several things for Guild that I actually need to work on that are not related to the Kickstarter, but are future
Ooh,
projects.
can you share what those are or not yet?
Yeah, sure. So I plan on personally releasing several supplemental books for this. Um, one of which is going to be like armor and weapons, or arms and armor, which is basically going to be a book of my ideas for how I would extrapolate the information in the original text and create a bunch of cool, you know, maybe 16-page little zine of just arms and armor for Guild. And then there's going to be another one that'll probably be monsters and magic and just some cool spells that I come up with and some monsters and enemy tables that are all extrapolated from the text from the original manuscript. And then eventually I'm going to put out an overland travel and survival rules book, um, because that's not really a main focus of the game, but it is something that people will probably want or homebrew themselves when they do things. So why not, you know, make it available from my own head as well. Um, and there is going to be a regularly occurring, I don't know how regularly, but a regularly occurring release of the Guild Adventure Diary, which issue 0 is the stretch goal for the Kickstarter, which will be available to buy as well in the backer kit. But I plan to release regular issues of it basically as a recurring, um, old school TSR style, like, you know, here's series 1A, 1B, 1C, whatever, written by, you know, I already have several people that have hit me up with pitches for adventures for it. So it's the Guild is the game that I want to just basically support for a long time. I want to release lots of stuff for it, adventures, supplement books. I want other people to write stuff for it, you know, and there's going to be like a third party license, but it's basically just going to be write stuff for it and don't be a Nazi, basically, is the only rule. Um, yeah, like that's it. You know, as long as you're not a fascist or like writing offensive material, I don't. You can claim this is for Guild, and you know, if I like it a lot, I might pick it up and actually print it myself and sell it in the store. You know, yeah, obviously doing like a profit share with the person who writes it, and you know, figure out some kind of deal with
You're
that.
not going to have the guilds guild where
The,
people can write stuff for you, and you get to take it all as your own IP.
That's not a bad idea. No, I would never try and take things from people. Actually, everyone that's written an adventure for me, I've written in the contracts for them that all of the writing is theirs. The adventure is written for Guild, the game, But they can, after the game is released and the book is printed, they can rewrite that adventure. They can take all the guild reference out of it and resell it if they want for OSE or, Morkborg or
I
whatever
mean,
they want.
yeah, given the theme of the game and kind of what I imagine your sort of the at least the kind of standard adventures are like, it'd be very easy to take a lot of other materials and convert them into guild adventures, or to
Yeah,
take guild adventures and convert anything else, because you're doing the thing that you're kind of doing anyway,
yeah,
which is dungeon delving essentially, and it's just a matter of doing the kind of system, the sort of mechanic conversion and kind of what you're rolling,
yeah.
that
We
sort of
ran
thing.
we ran Well of Souls from DCC, I think, on +1 like 2 weeks ago or something, and that was great. Jarrett Crater ran it for us, and he read the game text like that morning, and then just like real quick like threw the categories into the adventure, replacing whatever the stats were, and good to go. Like, it was really easy and it was great.
Yeah, I mean, having read it, I don't feel like people will have a hard time taking something, especially of the kind of classic bent, and just taking the innards out and saying, all right, yeah, I'm going to use the
Yeah,
maps and everything else,
yeah,
and
for
just
sure.
monsters. Maybe I don't know if I would convert them, or just kind of use the kind of stuff embedded.
Yeah,
Terrence says that I've been totally Watsy pilled.
yeah. I think you
maybe,
might have been. Yeah,
maybe it's just a day. I don't have anything against Watsy. I found for a while I've been just amazed at people who, I guess, during this whole, I don't know, fifth edition renaissance, whatever, this fifth edition boom, have signed up for the DM's Guild, because it takes so much away from you and gives it to them. But I wonder, why would you do this? So if I'm a little bit harsh on the DM's Guild, it's only because I've read it, and I see what happens to your work when it goes into the guild.
yeah,
And the answer is, they take it, and you get back a pittance in return. And unless you feel like you're going to go James Introcaso or someone like that, who ends up getting a job at WotC through doing it, it seems like an immense not good thing to do. But
yeah.
people love it. So what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Everyone's adults. They got to make their own choices.
You can write for Guild. Sort of Magic.
I would be happy to write for Guild. Guild,
Let's do
I
it.
mean, the thing is, like, reading it, I'm like, oh yeah, this is like, and I was already in my brain, and this is why I said before, I guess I'll say it again, with the having just kingdom and guild, because maybe it's just me, but I was already thinking like, oh, what's my kingdom? What's the kingdom called? Like,
Yeah.
what's the guild called? Like those things. And I really like, now I've always go back and forth on whether I like rules to be more or less settings free, or settings heavy. And it's something that I think drives me crazy when I'm working on my own stuff, is I always go back and forth. Like, should I be being more settings? Should I make it just put the settings in that people like with Into the Odd, or
Right. Yeah.
Electric
Yeah.
Bastion Line, where the setting is or more boring in a sense, where the setting and
The
everything is
setting
just
is a
as one.
huge factor. Yeah.
But then I read something like Guild, and I'm like, but I do like it where it's just like, you're going to put this in whatever place you want. And other than these, a couple of things, basically the coins and just kind of what it says about how these guilds function and operate in the world. But other than that, it's like, it's totally kind of,
Yeah, I already had
on you.
someone mention like, "Oh, I could do a space version of this," and I was like, "You could, but like Mothership already exists, so you don't need to." But like, then immediately I was like, "Okay, wait, hold on. What if there was like a space union, and
Yeah,
that's
I
what
mean,
you
because
work
look, those
for?" You know?
like there are all those things in those tropes in sci-fi, with like the salvage people going out
Yeah,
there, the kind of
exactly.
those, like the folks like an alien going out to check out what
Uh-huh.
what thing has crashed and what they can get off of it, or like in the Chronicles of Riddick universe with
Yeah,
all these things. God, like yeah,
and
you
all the
could easily
categories
like
could just
mork
be
borg
easily
this
just
thing.
shifted over, and nothing
Basing
is
guild, come on, it
nothing is
writes itself.
tied to fantasy specifically, other than maybe the backgrounds, right? Because they're farmer, minstrel, weaver, whatever. But
Yeah,
like,
totally.
that kind of
It
stuff is
just you
easy to
just
change.
change gold to unobtainium, and then you could be right in the
There you
Avatar
go. Yeah,
universe.
we're already
It,
ready to
it,
go.
it's
I gotta start right. I gotta
it
set up a
literally just write
Kickstarter
itself.
page.
You just gotta, James Cameron, don't sue me. And also like the Spacing Guild, but please, the estate of what's his name, Herbert Dune fame, please don't sue me over the Spacing Guild either.
Yeah,
There's
yeah,
no spice here, though. That could easily be a thing that you have to go get. Like everything
yeah.
like you change gold into spice, and then it's like,
It's like one
some.
pound of spice is a payment in.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
look, there's some era in the Dude universe where basically a lot of the long range travel, like that, where everything's kind of falling apart. I forget there's a stage where like they lose a lot of that, and then they gotta get it back. But basically, you can have where people there's no spice, and people
Yeah.
need spice, and there you have guys going around and junkers or whatever looking for these lost caches of spice in different places. I mean, somebody write this down and send it to me later so I can.
Yeah, I'm already like, okay, how do I? Let me set up my Kickstarter page for the next project, which is going to be that.
It's all there. Oh, Terrence says Brian Herbert. Yep. Brian. Yeah, it was Frank Herbert was the dad, right?
Frank
Brian Herbert
yeah,
and somebody
yeah.
else.
I thought Brian Herbert was his son.
It is. Yeah, it is.
Is it? Okay,
yeah. He's Frank Herbert was the
right,
originator. Then Brian Herbert, who had a co-writer who I forget who's helped co-write him. So you were at the how'd you hook up with Tony at Plus One XP? Because I know that's where he seems to be involved in so many things. I guess I shouldn't be surprised that he knows everybody.
Somebody I knew told me I should hit up Tony like almost 2 years ago when I first started that first project I was working on. And I didn't really know who he was. I didn't know anything about him. And then I found out he lived in Philly, and I was like, holy shit, so do I. So we like gradually over time just kind of connected, and I've hung out with him a couple times. He's a cool dude. I don't know, just Philly gamer people, I just know him from online.
Yeah, you guys lucked out to have PAX there.
Yeah, he had a great booth there, man.
Yeah, he did. Not a bad spot either. Was this your first PAX experience, or have you been to some of these before? I don't remember when they first started in Philly.
Yeah, I went to PAX the first year that it was up. It was 6 years ago, maybe, or 5 years ago. But that was my first con ever. I had no idea what to expect. I didn't even know what to do. And I ended up having a panic attack about halfway through it, and we had to leave. And I was just like, I was losing it. I was like, I don't know.
Sounds about like my PAX last year.
Yeah,
that was my first one, and I was like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what I'm doing.
So many people, and I was so overwhelmed with like what the options were to even like, do I play a game? Like, what game do I play? Like, I don't know anybody here. What the hell? I didn't know there was like schedules for stuff because it was my first one.
That's what I feel like they don't help enough with the game stuff.
Yeah,
it's really they don't do a good job with which is weird because the whole thing is about board games and role playing games, and I feel like trying to get into different games, it's just the whole crapshoot. If you don't know from beforehand or something else going on, it's kind of hard to.
Yeah, number one, drink, absolutely. Yeah. No, I took my toddler on Saturday. She loved it. She had so much fun.
I think in a year or so, maybe I'll bring my daughter, who's 8 this year, maybe next year. I know she would love it.
Yeah, I actually got to play a game though, and that was fun. Like I was really happy with that. Most of the time I spent just hanging out with Tony's booth and walking around talking to people I knew. I was trying to huck some zines that I printed while I was there, or that a friend of mine printed for me because I was running late. But yeah, like Perkins said there, that's exactly true. I mean, I met a lot of people that I kind of knew from online, like Todd, for instance. Like I kind of knew online, or I did know pretty well online, but I just had never actually had a chance to meet them in person and sit down and talk to them. And I talked to you for I don't even know, almost 45 minutes probably.
Yeah. Like it was right as it was closing down. And I think you had mentioned that you were going to play that game. Your play it, and I would have gone, but I just knew it was like I am beat. And and I'm going to be falling asleep if I
it was back. Rough. It was a rough weekend. I mean, I was exhausted the whole weekend. Like it was just so many people, and meeting people is just difficult.
It is, especially when I think that's why someone like Tony is so helpful, because he can be that kind of first connection between you and somebody else.
Yeah.
Because I've been going that too, having to go in and kind of give myself a spiel and talk. And for me, I always feel nervous. I don't want to go to someone's booth when they got a lot of traffic there, because I'm not there to take up somebody's time when they could be making sales or doing something. So I'm always kind of like, do I hover? Do I come back? Do I feel like do I come off like something kind of weird if I'm just sort of
I'm just gonna stand behind you
on the outside of the I'm slowly but surely getting better at it. Are you planning to take Guild to any cons or do anything?
I would love to. I'm trying to figure out where I'm going next, to be honest. I know that Gen Con already. I mean, I probably wouldn't have been able to even afford to go to Gen Con, but I know Gen Con like already sold out all their booths for August, which is ridiculous.
I've heard that Gen Con is pricey, and that you don't want to. Someone told me, I might have been the Inkwell Ideas guys, because they get a booth at Gen Con. They put out like a worldographer, hexographer, and they do
okay.
cards and things. And they told me that like it's expensive, and you kind of start from the bottom. So like you're going to be getting like your first year getting a booth there. It's going to be kind of you're getting the bottom of the barrel of booth positioning. But the other thing is if you mess up, like they've got like one of those like soup Nazi enemies lists kind of things going on. It's like you mess up with them, and it's just like you're out.
Yeah.
So you probably only want to like do that if you're gonna like follow through and do everything, because if you goof on it, then it's like that's your one shot. So
yeah. I like the concept of driving all the way down to Atlanta for Dragon Con, but I also have a 3-year-old, so I don't know how viable that actually is. But I was talking to one of the guys that I met there, who actually lives in Baltimore. I was just talking to him yesterday, and he and the dude from Games and Stuff at Baltimore, he was running the free RPG Day booth.
Oh yeah.
I guess they're seeing if they can put together some kind of like city approved, like not gaming convention, but some kind of thing that is like RPG focused, that is normally like I guess like an open air market kind of thing, but he was talking to me about how he's trying to see if he can get like a whole section of it just for like game designers and games people to come and like sell their products and have game tables and stuff like that there.
Oh, that'd be cool.
But it's like a city thing, so they have to go through like a board approval from the city of Baltimore. But
at least Baltimore's not far.
Yeah, it's it's an hour and a half from us, so it's not too bad for me. I can make that easy in a day.
Yeah, I was tempted to do that, driving back and forth, but I said no, I'll stay. I don't want it. It's a little bit closer to 2 hours from me to Philly, but I was like, it's a little too much of a slog. I don't want to be.
I don't really know any other conventions that are like small that are over here, but I am like looking out for them.
There's one in Massachusetts that I've been told about. I think it's going to takes place in April. I forget the name of it, but it's kind of a small sort of OSR-ish one, which I think would be like Guild would fit right in with. I can try to find out the name. And then there's ShireCon that I went to for the first time.
I have heard of ShireCon.
I think it was in September, which was cool. It's in a small town in basically pretty much in Massachusetts. It's right in it's in Connecticut, but it's that area of Connecticut that basically butts up against New York State and Massachusetts. There's kind of like a corner there, and it's right. Really nice folks. It's really small, but it's nice. They kind of it's like the the location's like an old church. So it kind of has kind of interesting, like different little atmosphere. The little town there's just got one little tiny little main drag, but there's like a nice coffee shop, like a block, across the street or something. It's really a cute, quaint place to have a con. That one might be a good one too. They're big into, I mean, obviously old school games, but like DCC, and I feel like something like Guild would kind of be right up their alley.
Yeah.
Especially if you're running it. I think if you're running it, people, and I think they said that this next year they're going to be adding more game time, because people were saying they want more, because like it's basically that it's only one day. It's Saturday. It's like they run Saturday, and then they kind of do like a pre thing on Friday. But I think now they're like, we want to add some games to Friday because people just want more.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I'll shoot you over the info for that. Anything else you want to? Thanks for hanging for the hour. Is there anything else you want to mention?
I don't know. I mean, I got some stuff for sale in my store. I got a mothership adventure that let's see, where is it? Somewhere over here. Here it is, right next to me. Got this limited edition PAX U mothership adventure that I still have about 30 of these left. There was 69 printed, and you can get these on my store for $6. And this is an official third-party adventure, and it is the ash can for a whole series of adventures that will be coming out for Mothership in the next year.
I think maybe I have to check through my PAX list. I think maybe Tony slipped me one of those. I think
he had a stack of my books.
have to go back and check through, and if I do, I will display it on the channel. But I'm not going to go through my junk pile, or not junk pile, but my pile of stuff at the moment, because it doesn't make for great streaming. Links to all his stuff is in the show notes in various places. Also in the forums. If you go to the forums, I've got links to all that great stuff. You have any other appearances? Were you going to be on any other?
I think this was my last one for, as far as I'm aware. I probably have one, and I'm just completely spacing on it. But yeah, I think this was my last one for a while. But I'll probably try and pull something together in the next couple weeks if I can. I like being on streams with people talking. It's fun.
Yeah, no, I haven't done one of these in a while, so I'm glad we're able to make it work late in the calendar year. All right, well, folks, any last questions? Otherwise, I'll close down the chat, and Kirby, if you want to stick around for a minute after the closing credits roll, or credits, the closing screen. Anything last thoughts, chat, before I shut her down? I think, just as far as a programming note, Direct Sun, who made the Puzzle Dungeon Seer's Sanctum, has a new dungeon out, and they were kind enough to send me a copy, a digital copy. So I think tomorrow we'll take a look at that one. I forget the name, which means I'm doing a really poor job of things, but I will pull it up. I really liked. Did you ever hear of Seer's Sanctum? Did you ever check that one out?
I believe I saw them play Seer Sanctum on +1 EXP.
Okay, it was a lot of fun. I was really pleasantly surprised, because I think when he first sent it over to me, and the kind of pitch was like video game based and kind of Zelda, I was like, ooh, that's not really my style. But I mean, when I ended up read it, I was like, whoa, this is like really cool.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see what this next one is. All right, folks. Terrence says they're sure all their questions can be answered by the first half that they missed. Maybe, Terrence, you never know. If not, you can, his social media, his Twitter handle. What's your Twitter handle?
At DTRPGs.
At DTRPGs.
And my website is just disastertourism.games.
Also on TikTok as Disaster Tourism. Are you on Mastodon yet? Have you started your exit plan?
I'm actually trying to just get off of social media, but yeah, I mean, I'm on Substack. I release a newsletter every now and then. disastertourism.substack.com. You can subscribe to my newsletter, and that hopefully will become my primary focus of distributing.
I have a Substack that I need to get on, and I actually saw that. Congrats! I have 100 subscribers, and I haven't done anything in a long time. So I'm gonna try like hell to put out one of these things before the end of the year. I'm cognizant of wanting to. I don't really know how to use Substack yet. I get the newsletter element. I see other people will promote things more often, but then I'm always cognizant. I'm not trying to drown people in like, hey, watch this, or hey, check this out. So I struggle with it, and I end up forgetting about it, and I'm like, oh yeah, it's been 6 months, and I promised I would put something out. So I got that's going to be my New Year's resolution, is to finally get Substacking, or whatever they call it. All right, well, hang out a minute. I'm going to close down everybody else. I'll be back with that read through of that Direct Sun adventure tomorrow, so stay tuned for that. Otherwise, game on, everybody.
Thank you.